A very good evening to all of you. On behalf of Oxford University Press, I would like to welcome you all to a lecture on the ethics and economics of climate change policy. To begin with, I'd like to request Professor Shrikant Gupta, Associate Professor at Delhi School of Economics, University of Delhi, to welcome Professor Charles Colstart and take the evening forward. Over to you, sir.
Uh, I will make my own comments on what Professor Kolstad said on ethics and economics by first saying that to many of you who are not from economics, just these two words themselves may sound oxymorons. So other oxymorons that come to mind is military intelligence, draft final report for those of you ever been involved with consulting, and you're saying ethics because there is a sort of what I may respectfully submit, a sort of a caricature of economics in the minds of many people who are not in the profession or even perhaps in, words like market fundamentalist comes to mind. When you talk of environmental economics, some of my friends talk about commoditization of the environment. So what I really want to say is that I think that a more nuanced understanding of economics is important. And actually, I would first submit that ethics and economics are actually intertwined. If you really look at the origins of economics, at least modern economics in terms of, say, Adam Smith, a lot of those early economists were moral philosophers. And, the theory of moral sentiments and so on. So I think that it's reasonable to think that that ethics and economics go hand in hand, but the truth is somewhere in between. It's not that economics and ethics are sort of oxymorons, and it's also that economics and ethics are totally aligned. I think the truth, like in most things in life, is neither black nor white, but there are shades of gray. And I would like to first put that on the table as a way of thinking about the intersection of economics and ethics. So I would say that a lot of what people do in economics is motivated by ethical concerns. For example, making choices. In the book itself, in the textbook by Charlie itself, you'll see a very important chapter of societal choices. When we're making choices about environmental policy, we're making choices about climate, we're making choices, and there is an underlying ethical premise about choices. The big choices that we've already heard, so I'm not going to repeat. In climate changes, who mitigates, who cuts back, by how much? When do we cut back? Who pays for it? Who shares the burden? These are all ethical questions. There are also economic questions, and one would like to think that some of these ethical concerns have informed economic analysis of climate change. How well or how badly that has been done is, of course, a matter of debate. And I would say that economics has its limitations, but I would begin this defense that economics is not entirely devoid of ethical concerns as it is popularly believed. And I think that in terms of climate policy, also economists have tried hard to reflect some of these ethical concerns. We have talked in terms of ethical concerns a lot about historical responsibility. There are sort of some differences. Let me just tell you that when you do the work of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, you're an assessment body, so you can't bring in your own perspectives. You have to reflect the literature and largely the published literature. So there are these diversity of opinions about historical responsibility that most of us here may rile against because we have almost kind of, as Navroz was mentioning, it's almost an article of faith, So let's leave that aside for a moment. But there is another notion of responsibility that is informed by ethics, which is now gaining currency. And this is not in terms of the IPCC, but generally. And there is a concept called loss and damage. So, for example, if you were a small island country whose very existence is threatened by climate change, by sea level rise, then there is a notion of loss and there is a notion of compensation for that loss. And historically, these are well established, the reparations that were made by countries such as Germany after the war and so on. So there is a notion of ethics there. The other very important 2 points that I'd like to make in this context is, one is just in passing that we are talking about emissions, but for most of us who understand this issue, and I think most of us in this room do, the problem of global warming or climate change is not because of current emissions, it's the accumulated stock of emissions, because typically when carbon dioxide and other gases go into the atmosphere, they stay there for a very, very long time. So it's like saying a ton of CO2 emitted today is just about as bad as a ton of CO2 emitted 200 years ago. And that's where the notion of historical responsibility comes, because if it had dissipated, then there was no responsibility. So the idea there is that it's a stock problem, not a flow problem. This is, again, I'm sorry for my bad training as an economist, I use jargon, but a stock is something accumulated, like wealth is a stock. My wealth is so many rupees. My income is a flow because it's per month, per year, whatever. Emissions are per year. Stocks are the accumulated emissions. So the climate problem is of the accumulated, and that's where the notion of historical responsibility comes in. That's the sense where the notion of common but differentiated responsibility comes in. And there again, in passing, common but differentiated responsibility does not mean no responsibility. So as I think Navroz very clearly mentioned, that looking forward and even looking backwards, I think countries such as India, China, etc. in the South do accept that we have responsibility, but it's differentiated, so that's the word. And then, of course, the issue of capabilities. But that's in passing. But one point that hasn't come up yet, but I think we all understand it, is of that carbon space in the atmosphere, right? So the notion here is of equity, or if you think of this problem as one of dividing the global commons, then the sort of the ethical premise here is that we all have an equal right to the global commons. By all of us, we mean all humans. So it's not, so there is a notion here which can then be backed into a notion of per capita. So as Professor Kolstad mentioned that, in terms of, say, per capita emissions, there are certain countries which have very, very high emissions. And there are certain countries which have very low emissions, even though their total emissions may be very high, such as India. And I think we know that. So I just want to mention that in terms of an ethical premise, do we all have rights, equal rights to the atmosphere, to the global atmosphere? How do we allocate these rights? And then, of course, as Professor Kolstad very nicely mentioned, we have this notion of ethical equity in terms of intergenerational and intragenerational. So the generational equity is what he mentioned about today versus future. For philosophers, this is a debate whether we owe anything to the future, and he mentioned the literature about that. More intuitively, people think that, yes, there is no reason by corollary to favor the current over the past, over the future. So the well-being of somebody 100 years from now who's not around, should we have value it less than the well-being of someone today? But the tension then is that everybody today is not equally well off. And when countries are trying to improve living standards of people today, then there's a tension between intergenerational equity and intragenerational equity. And I think this is what, when countries argue that the right to development, so if you think of our country, where, say, 56% of rural Indian households don't even have electricity, and we have this very interesting concept of earth hour. And if you think of people who have earth hour every day, 24/7, then you think that you do need to provide electricity, and that obviously has certain climate consequences. So these trade-offs. And I don't think there are very easy answers to this. So I think if you came here thinking that you'd get some very clear answers on ethics and economics, I'm sure you'll be disappointed. The point that I would simply like to make is that in the work of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, these are very fundamental concerns. So for the first time, it is considering these issues, which doesn't mean that it has clear answers, because as Professor Kolstad very clearly mentioned, this group of experts and scientists has to review literature and not make normative judgments. So it's supposed to be policy relevant, but not policy prescriptive. But more generally, ethical concerns are very complex and are very hard to answer. But all I would like to say is that when it comes to ethics and economics, I think a lot of work in economics is informed by ethical concerns. It's a way, as Professor Kolstad mentioned, that it has a very difficult task. Economics is a very difficult task. Because, you know, like a philosopher, you can say things, but economics also works in the real world, in the policy world, which, as Shubir very nicely pointed out, that, you know, ultimately people have to make decisions, and there are these underlying ethical dilemmas. And I think what happens is that we in the policy world make recommendations, choices have to be made, and in that sense, it's a very difficult task, and particularly in the realm of climate policy, whether it is cutting back emissions, which is mitigation, or adapting to it, very severe ethical choices are involved, and the economics profession and the economists are trying. Whether they'll succeed is for posterity to decide. So I'll close with that.